Hello, everybody. I have Alan with me today, and we're going to be talking kind of about content services or information management and the marketplace as a whole. But before we dive in, would you mind doing a quick introduction for everybody?
Absolutely, yes. Hi there, I'm Alan Pelz-Sharpe. I'm the founder and principal analyst at Deep Analysis. We call it deep analysis because we don't do shallow analysis. We try and go deep, but we're basically an industry analyst firm that focuses on information management. So we research the market, the trends, the futures, the technologies, the practices. That's our world. We live in it, and we publish a lot of stuff, and you can check it out at www.deep-analysis.net.
Perfect.
There we go.
Thank you. So to get us started, it's going to be a broad-based question, but what are some of the trends that you guys are seeing and paying attention to within this information management space?
Well, I mean, obviously this year has been exceptional and crazy. I mean, there's always been a lot going on in the space, but this year has really focused everybody, I guess, on this. I mean, we call it decentralization just to give it a big word, right? But the fact is everything's splintered and fragmented. It actually was before, but now we're really painfully aware of it. So the weaknesses of traditional ways of trying to manage information have been sort of put in the spotlight. And so everybody's sort of scrambling to do something in the short term and hopefully thinking strategically about what they should do better in the future. So it's a period of huge change in the industry. Even though we're industry analysts, nobody really knows how it's all going to play out, right? But you get some ideas of what's happening. But yeah, decentralization, micro silos, another sort of silly analyst term, but you know, again, that concept of managing information in one place, which is sort of the traditions of the industry, well, they've gone right out the window. You know, people are managing in Box, in Dropbox, in Google Drive, in their email, in Slack, in Zoom, and that's not going to change. And of course, their laptops are their, you know, central computer. So my God, who knows what's on those? And getting our head around how do we bring some order to that chaos? That's what's happening in the industry. Everybody's sort of questioning it. And a lot of people are saying, oh, I've got the answer, but nobody really has the answer. We've all got parts of the answer, maybe.
There's, I'm sure, you know, for lack of a better term, there's multiple ways to skin the cat, but it's being strategic with the way that you're thinking about it, choosing a path and going down that path. I don't know if there is a single right answer for every organization.
There isn't. And it's interesting you say pick a path. And I think that's what's such a struggle now. It was possible to sit down and sort of do some 5-year planning. And I've done that with people many times over the years. And you all know that whatever you're planning for 5 years probably won't actually happen. But at least you've got a plan, right? At least you've got a plan. At least you've got structure. And I think that's very important. And I think now we're recognizing that the traditional ways of planning, information management strategies, if we can call them that, have to change. We've got new technology, which has been coming along for a long time, but we have new challenges. So it's a very exciting time, actually, to have an opportunity to completely rethink, and I would use the term reframe, the whole discussion of information management. And I think that conversation is just starting, but it's quite an exciting one.
To that avenue, mentioning new technologies and kind of reshaping the way that we do our work, I know a lot of what I've seen on your website and with, you know, from chatter from my own perspective within the industry, RPA and consolidation of that market and having it take more of center stage within information management, I think is something that I at least am noticing over the last year, so to speak. Would you mind talking a little bit about that and how that fits into the larger puzzle?
Yeah, so that's actually one of the most fascinating parts of the puzzle, because RPA sort of came into the industry with a sort of big bang just a couple of years ago. And of course, you've got these crazy market valuations against some of these companies like Blue Prism and UiPath and whatever. And so that catches our attention. But I think if you flip it round and you forget about those vendors and you say, well, why is there interest here? I mean, why? Why is there so much interest here? Because it's not what RPA does is really quite simple. I'm not saying the technology is simplistic, but it's really quite simple. And it would be better to call it repetitive task automation, because that's what it is, right? That's absolutely what it is. And I think that's what's fascinating. I mean, so you've got two sort of consolidations going on here. You've got the corporate strategy stuff, right? Oh, this company's worth this. Maybe I should buy it. Maybe I should build my own, whatever. So you've got the market, the technology market, which I'm very interested in. But you've got that all going on. But there's a separate dynamic here where people are enterprises, be that, I use the word enterprise very loosely. It could be a government department, it could be a pharmaceutical, it could be a manufacturing company, whatever. They're basically finally got to the point where they've said, you know what, this is all great, this massive idea of digital transformation. And I know I could spend $100 million with you. It's all going to be amazing. But how's about I just fix some of the, I'm trying to think of a polite way of putting this, but how can we just fix some of these stupid problems that we've got, right? Like, why does it take 3 days to process an invoice? Why is it when I send this off, it doesn't come back to me for 5 days? They're starting to deal with the real practicalities of what gets in the way of transformation. So if you take, for example, this is actually a real example. There's a government department, and I won't say which government department, which country, but they accept a form because you apply for a visa, right? So it's the visa process. So they built this whole new web platform, and it looked so cool, and it was amazing, and it cost a fortune. And people were even more upset about the quality of service afterwards. Why? Because when it was a 20-year-old website and you had to fill in a piece of paper and mail it to them, your expectations were pretty low, right? You didn't really think you were going to get this back quick. Now you got this whiz-bang website. It's like, hey, just click this button. And it still takes the same amount of time to process it. Why? Because those back office processes are still manual. And now they really sting. So just dealing with that back office, boring stuff that nobody thought was exciting has sort of come up, and that's boosted RPA. RPA is dealing with those boring things.
And I think that's actually one of the things that I talk with our clients a lot about is setting a foundation for your transformation, because yes, all of these cool things that are coming down the pipeline, artificial intelligence and RPA, all these things that you hear about are really wonderful tools. But if you don't have a foundation and you haven't taken some steps towards automation, you're going to be putting the horse before the cart in that scenario, because, or other way around. Before the horse. There we go. I'm known for mixing up my little sayings there, but because you're going to miss some of those small problems, and maybe you're going to automate something like you said in that scenario where you have this wonderful website, but if you don't have the systems in place to back it up, you're going to end up in a situation where people are more frustrated with you than ever before, because the expectation changes.
Expectations change, but you raise a good point. I mean, artificial intelligence, I mean, that's a topic very close to my heart. We built a training course on it. We published a book on it. I don't think a working day goes by without some sort of AI discussion. And it's a topic I'd like to think I know pretty well. But if you take the topic of AI, everybody's excited about AI, and there should be. It's clever stuff, right? And it's come on a long way in the last few years. But if you don't have good quality data, it's not going to work. I mean, it's as simple as that. It will not work. And how do you get good quality data? That's boring and that's hard work and it's messy. And you might think you have access to all this data. Well, you do, but it's a pile of junk. So the hard work of dealing with those practical issues, nobody wants to do. So they're all excited about AI, but again, if you take AI, 80% of an AI project is gathering and cleaning data. You can't just plug it in and switch a button and it starts being brilliant. It doesn't work like that. And that educational process for RPA and for AI is what people are going through right now. The technology is fine. The technology is fine, but the working practices are not really in place today in most organizations to leverage them.
And there are opportunities too to start leveraging some of those things more tactically versus trying to build your own AI solution.
You definitely should not try to build your own AI solution. It's a really, really, really bad idea. And that's it. You use the word right. You should be very, very tactical. I mean, if you deal with contracts, right? There is machine learning out there that can do an amazing job of reading contracts and recognizing that this clause triggers this action, et cetera, et cetera. That's very tactical. That technology is there. You're still going to have to do a lot of work, but you'll get a return on your investment very quickly with that. Whereas when you start thinking, I'm not trying to have a dig at Google or IBM or something, but when you think it's some sort of amazing intelligence that's going to sort your problems out for you, you're in for a big disappointment.
One thing that you and I have also talked about that maybe hasn't had quite as big of an impact in the information management landscape as we would have anticipated at this point is blockchain and how that may affect things as we move forward, or where you maybe see opportunities for that. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll go as far as to say I think in the long term, blockchain is going to have a massive impact. And it's very interesting in our work. Conversations fall into two buckets. One, people really get it and they're driving ahead with it and we're working with them, and that's all cool. And then you got the other set who are going, yeah, I get it, not interested, it's not going to happen. So it is at a strange inflection point. Again, blockchain technology, it's there, it works. You can plug into Hyperledger, it's there. But people don't really understand the business value of it, right? That work, that educational work hasn't been done yet. And the thing is with blockchain, it's actually not complicated at all. Well, the technology is really complicated, but the concept of blockchain is super simple. It's a shared version of the truth. That's it. There's nothing more to it. Ironically, that makes it possibly the most transformative of the technologies we've talked about. Because if you think of the concept, at least, of a supply chain, so we think about food from farm to table, right? That's what we think about when we think about supply chain. But the truth is, a legal firm has a supply chain. It hands things off to the courts. It does, we all do to some extent. When you suddenly realize you don't have to hand something off, you don't have to double verify this, you can now trust this source of information. It is absolutely amazing the possibilities this opens up. That's a disaster probably in the long term for traditional information management companies because it makes them sort of redundant. But there's a lot going on. Despite my accent, I am actually a US citizen and all of that stuff. So I'm not bad-mouthing the US here, but we're way behind the curve. The really cool stuff we're seeing in blockchain is happening in Asia. There's loads of stuff coming out of like Singapore and South Korea and China. China's way ahead of us. Latin America, believe it or not, we are way behind on blockchain. So it's very interesting because, to your point, why haven't we seen that? Well, the fact is parts of the world have, and they're moving ahead super fast. We're getting left behind. So I'm fascinated by blockchain because it just opens up so many possibilities.
Well, and even in certain places, like you're talking about, like that shared truth. Well, in healthcare, having a shared truth of what images are being looked at and how you're sharing that information and not having to worry about what electronic health record system information is held in if it's all in this shared environment for you to be able to get access.
Blockchain has huge potential in healthcare. And it's interesting because a few years ago, it was actually healthcare who were one of the early movers with their consortiums, consortiums like Hashed Health and stuff, who were trying to get this together. But if you see, and I don't like name dropping because I don't want to endorse anybody, whatever, but just as an example, there's a company called Burst IQ. They're a startup, but there's a company like Burst IQ who are building out, and I mention it particularly for this conversation because they're leveraging machine learning, AI, and blockchain in healthcare. And to your point, shared data, absolutely secure, absolutely trustworthy. Yeah, if you're interested in what they're doing, you can check them out for yourselves. But the point being, there are huge initiatives starting up in healthcare, and they really will be transformative. There'll be pushback within healthcare because, to be blunt about it, some people do really nicely in inefficient environments. It works for them. Doesn't work for us, but
as a consumer, you don't want that.
As a consumer, you absolutely don't want it. But the truth is that's often the pushback on big technology advances, is that inefficiency is actually quite profitable for a lot of people. If you're talking about, oh, well, I now only need one copy of this document instead of 20, well, that's great. That's an efficiency gain to somebody. It's a loss of income to 19 others who were charging you for the time that it took for them to process that. So, it's people that hold back technology advances, not the technology itself.
Well, I really appreciate you joining me for the conversation today. I know we touched on a lot of really big topics and kind of just brushed the surface. So I would encourage anybody that wants to learn a little bit more about whether it's AI or RPA and kind of the space within the marketplace or blockchain to, again, go check out Alan's website or follow him on LinkedIn. I know I've seen a lot of your articles being shared there. There's a lot of great insights and information that you can gain, or go check out the book that he mentioned as well on AI if you want to learn a little bit more there. But I really appreciate you joining me, and I hope everybody has a great day.